Hey guys, it's Kirsten, and I wanted to bring you guys just some playful movements on how you can change up your yoga practice. Now, for this change up, I'm incorporating the yoga wheel. Now, there's lots of different sites out there for different types of wheels. You can get them on Amazon or Walmart or Target or any of those places, really. There's tons of places that you can find the yoga wheel. The thing that's nice is there's a nice thick padding that comes on here, so it's got a nice hard plastic and then a good foam piece. Now some of them are cork and all different types of materials, but this is a really nice way to get more playful with your practice. So I'm just going to show you a couple different movements that you could play around with if you do have a yoga wheel. And I was going to structure a whole sequence for you, but then that sort of defeats the point of playfulness, right? I want you guys to play around, explore. There's no right or wrong. That's one of the beautiful things in our practice is listening to our breath, letting our breath carry our movement rather than being so regimented and rigid about where we are flowing to. Sometimes we become so hung up on, oh, I did three, sun salutations and then warrior A, warrior B on the right side, and I only did 2 sun salutation and warrior A, warrior B on the left side. Guys, just get in there and practice. That's the biggest thing. So let's start down on the ground. Let me show you a couple of my favorite movements that you can use with the wheel. The first one is child's pose. Child's pose is pretty simple. You can grab the outer edges, placing our thumbs on top, walking the knees back, drop your head down and just keep your arms extended out. Feel the length through the side body. Now, another variation that I really like to the child's pose is kind of an in-between between child's pose and puppy pose. So you bring your wheel flat. You're going to walk your hands forward and you're going to drop your head down. And the thing that I like here is because there's some plastic and the foam on my rubber mat, there's a little bit of a grip. So I can get this sort of drawing back. So I can pull my shoulder blades down. So you can really feel that stretch. I can do some active stretching here in this pose. So I drop my head and I'm going to pull my shoulder blades down. And I'm going to keep doing that for a count of 3 to 5. So we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm just going to release, let the head drop down a little bit more. And then do that again. Pull the shoulder blades down. And the wheel might move just a little bit, but that's okay. And I can do it for a 3 to 5 count. 3, 2, 1. And then just relax, melt down into that pose. So that is a really nice lat opener. Can be really helpful when we get really, really stiff. So that's 2 options for a child's pose position that we could start out with. Now, another one that I really enjoy incorporating is our bird dog position. So usually we come into a tabletop, and I'll just move this to the side for a second. We would come into all fours, and our bird dog, we extend the legs out and then draw the elbow in. Now you can place one hand, so in this case, actually I'll place it on the left side so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to place my hand on top of the wheel and I'm going to extend that arm out. It's going to come onto my forearm, so it extends out. Start out by just practicing that movement before you start lifting other limbs so you can feel the stability. So I'm going to draw those ribs in. Right shoulder is still over my wrist. And then I'm going to extend the arm out, draw it back, extend it out, draw it back. So what I really want to think about here is I'm drawing that elbow in. The elbow isn't splaying out. So I'm going to reach forward, draw it back. And you can start to see kind of if your arm's going a little wonky because the wheel will turn. So it's a really good visual cue for you. So the arm reaches forward and bring it back. Now I can try incorporating the opposite leg. Pressing down through the top of the left foot, I'm going to extend the right leg back and then draw it in. Extend back and draw it in. Now you can switch this up by placing the wheel behind you. And you're going to place the top of your foot on the wheel. So you can kind of play around with it. You want the wheel to touch the front of your ankle and shin on that right side. So coming back into that tabletop position, again, start with just moving the wheel. So I'm going to extend the leg back. It'll come onto the top of the shin. You're not pressing crazy down, and because it's not hard, this shouldn't be painful. But then I'm going to draw it in. And you're going to have to flex the toes back towards you. If you just leave them long when you come in, it starts to get a little wonky on there. Wonky must be my word. So I'm going to extend that leg back and then draw it back in. And I can draw it in, be on the top of the foot there just as long as I start to tuck the toes. That's going to catch it so it doesn't just roll away from me. Now I can incorporate opposite arm, opposite leg, start to draw them in. And it takes a little balance, as you see. Draw it in and extend. Draw it in and extend. Okay? So that's a good way to incorporate it into bird dog. I'm going to show you how you can incorporate this into a sun salutation to change things up for yourself as well. So let's start our sun salutation from a standing position. I'm going to place the wheel right in between my feet. My feet are going to be a little bit wider than hip distance for this one. So I would inhale, I reach up. Exhale, come forward. I'll place my hand on either side of the wheel. Thumbs will be down. Then I'm going to come to a halfway lift. I'm going to press down. Send my hips back. So this is really nice because sometimes blocks are a little bit shorter. But because this moves in a position where blocks just kind of topple over, you can really start to walk it forward, shifting the weight out of the heels so it's not so heavy. And really straighten those arms. Get a small dip in the low back as we send the tailbone up and back. Gaze is going to be between my eyebrows, so I'm not cranking my head back, but keeping my head in a nice neutral position, but gazing between. Then I'm going to start to walk the wheel back. The wheel's going to come in between the legs as I start to fold down. Now I can hold opposite side of the wheel and just fold. But then I'm going to place my hands down, bend my knees so my thighs are in contact with my chest. I'm going to step back, and for my plank, I'm actually going to rest my low ribs on here. Now you'll notice my hips are in a bit of a drop here. So I'm going to send my hips up so I can pull my heart through. So I'm going to have to send the hips up, pull the elbows back, because I'm going to drop them down. So this is going to be my modified chaturanga. Now you'll notice I can't really come down, not without feeling like I'm squeezing my insides, and that's not super fun. But I'm going to stay here, keep the toes tucked under, and then I could press back, and it'll come onto the top of your chest. Now I know what you're thinking. If you have a chest, this probably doesn't feel great, or it might feel a little awkward. It's fine for me, so again, play around with it and use your body type. I can come back here for a modified child's pose that keeps my chest lifted up a little bit more, and then I can lift my heels, lift my hips, drop my heels down, and I can come into a downward facing dog. Now if I wanted to then come back forward, I can just roll the wheel back to the front here. And then stepping forward, you come back up, halfway lift, and fold. Now if the chaturanga, again, because it is a little awkward, one of the things I will also cue, you could bring this back further so it is between closer to your hips, and you can walk your hands out. So now I can bend my elbows just a little bit more, my hips stay higher. So this is going to give you a little truer form, and then I could drop this and lift up. Don't try to arch your back, especially if you are hyper flexible. Really don't press that back, because by placing our hips on this, we're pushing our hips forward. That can start to put a little pressure in the sacrum, so we don't need that. Remember, we're modifying things, we're playing around with it, listening to our bodies. Every person is different. Because they have a longer torso, I had to slide that further back. So instead of this being between my feet when I come into sun salutation, I would actually bring it behind at the back of my heels. Then when I step back, I can get that position to give a small bend to the elbow, keep my head in a neutral position, drop the knees down, straighten the arms, gaze forward, and then roll back or from here, just lift the hips, come back to a downward facing dog. Roll your wheel to the front, and it might come to tap your head, that's okay as well. And then come back into it. So that's how you can incorporate the wheel into a sun salutation. Another really good one is when you're working on a lunge. So here, I can start with the wheel back behind me. My feet are a little bit wider. I would step my right foot in this example forward, and then I can lift the left foot up. So this is going to assist to start to draw the knee in. And then I'm going to step back. So this would be the equivalent of me drawing my right knee in towards my elbow and stepping forward. So instead I brought this in, knee to elbow without having that weight, and then step back. Now I can place my thigh on top of this wheel. Now this feels nice because I have a lot more support. This can take the pressure out of the wrist, so if you have sensitive wrists, this can be a really nice position. Bend that knee slightly, and you can start to rise up. So I can still tuck the pelvis and keep that knee bent just a little bit to reach up to come into a crescent pose. I can take this into a twist, maybe staying high to start out, getting used to it, or even bringing the elbow on the outside to hook it, coming back in. And then again, coming back down, I can come to a runner's lunge and kind of rest comfortably here. And even start to walk the leg back to come into that half Hanuman, lift the gaze, and then make sure your wheel doesn't roll away. Start to re-bend, walk the hands forward, and you see I can lift that pretty easily. And if you have blocks, because if this feels a little too high, even the blocks, it's all going to start pulling some of the weight out of the leg. Now that's kind of the cool thing with the wheel is you could place stacked blocks on the back thigh, but as soon as you try to step forward, you just be knocking everything over where the wheel is going to start to slide forward. That being said, the wheel does move. So it can slide. Now once the top of your thigh is on there, it's really not going anywhere. But as you're moving it back and forth, kind of trying to find your flow in the movement, it might move away from you. Now if you want something challenging and you're playing around with your wheel, you might come to a downward facing dog. And similar to the bird dog position, bring that wheel over, and you can place your hand on top of it, so the forearm will come, and you'll draw the elbow back, extend the hand back. So start there, feeling the connection between both the left hand on the wheel and the right hand on the floor. And if you feel okay with that, maybe you start with the arm extended and bring the right leg up. So this is going to require more balance, but it's certainly a little easier than if I remove the wheel and have to balance on my own. Now the nice thing again with this is it's a good visual and tactile example of where we're shifting. You can really feel if you're putting a lot of pressure into that left hand, or if you can start to get lighter with it and lift your hand off of it and balance just on your one arm and your one leg. If you're like, no, I'm not going there at all, that's all right as well. Now, the other way to use the wheel, which is often how I do use this wheel, is help me with my back bending. And I always tell people, start with the easiest position. And the easiest position to start with is going to be placing your wheel against your back like you're your friend, back to back. And you're just going to place your thumbs in the bottom of the wheel. Hands can face forward. You can turn them out slightly and just lift your chest. This is the back bend. Okay? Don't go any further than this if it does not feel good, because the wheel, as you can see, is very large. So if you're not prepared for that, it can be a lot. But this is a nice way to just get a little bit, and if that feels okay, start to bend the elbows, and that feels all right, then maybe shift the hips back and start to lift the arms. I like to start with the goalpost and send the elbows forward, palms up towards the ceiling, and just start to bring my head back. And I can hang out here, and that might be okay, Or if it starts to be more intense, I start to lift myself up. Now another option here is you bring your hips further away so that the wheel starts to slide up between the shoulder blades, similar to a supported fish with a block. And you'll reach your arms back, drop your head back. So if you can catch the wheel, hug the elbows in, drop the head. This could be all that you do. Or you start to shift the heels back just a little bit, lift the hips, maybe just gentle rocks, back and forth. If that feels okay, starting to walk the feet in. Gaze will start to drop towards the back of your mat, and maybe your head taps, maybe it doesn't, don't get too concerned with it. I like to lift the head just a little bit, but that's my comfort level. And then when I want to come out of it, I'm going to start to walk my feet forward, come out of it the same way I went into it. Planting the hands on either side, I can start to lift my hips, sliding the wheel down the back until I come back up to a seated position. So that's a couple of different ways that you can use the wheel. I don't want to get into too many crazy options for you, but play around with it. If you have a wheel, explore the movement. Really, what feels good for you, and just change up the practice. Give it a shot. See how it feels. Like I said, I really enjoy getting my wheel out and just getting out of my head, and it takes the seriousness out of the practice that sometimes we get into. We're so serious about landing those poses and nailing those positions. And the wheel reminds me, it's a humble reminder of how silly it can be, how caught in my practice or in my head I am. And you'll topple, you'll fall side to side, but then you'll laugh about it because you're like, I'm rolling around on a wheel, really. If you don't have a wheel, another option is, some people have the Swiss ball. Those are the big inflatable balls. You can play around with those. They're much bigger. You can certainly get smaller sizes of those that you can play around with. But again, these are pretty inexpensive, and if you want to play around with it, it really does change up your practice. I hope you guys are enjoying your 40-day journey. And if I can answer any other questions, make sure that you give me an email or direct message me online. Remember, Kirsten@followyourarrow.com if you have any questions. Guys, have a great day. Enjoy the practice, and I'm going to roll out.